So I guess I just wanted to get on here and just speak my truth a little bit. Um, if you've been following this whole transformative journey thus far, and I'm pretty sure that it'll reach people when it's meant to reach people, just know, for one, that this is not my first transformation, right? I've been going through these type of things for a very, very long time, and that's why I navigate them the way I do, because it's not foreign to me. The little details might be foreign because I'm consistently leveling up in my journey. Um, just like being a human being here on earth, um, like everyone does, hopefully is doing. But this is not my first rodeo. Not even close. Like since I was a child, I used to go through stuff like this where I would have times of, okay, I would hear you need to go into isolation, and whenever I would force it, something would happen to where I would be forced into isolation. For example, if it was because of another person that I wanted to continuously talk to on why I was avoiding isolation, I would either get into conflict with that person, or they would piss me off to the point where I'm like, okay, I'd rather be with myself any fucking way. Depending on the dynamic of the relationship and if it was worth keeping, would depend on the severity, on whether it would mean that I would get the consequence of them having to leave my life for good, or if it could be salvaged after my hermit mode or isolation period was over. It all just depended. So I want to start off with that. And for two, I also wanted to come here and say that I feel as though I finally understood what the basis of this transformation was for me, because there's always a theme. Sometimes it's love, sometimes it's forgiveness, sometimes it's self-love, sometimes it's to develop my spiritual gifts further. It just depends on what it is. And this time I am being called to operate from my heart space more, and that's been a theme for 2024, honestly. And even though we're in 2025, I see remnants of it. I see remnants of all the work that I put in 2024 to open up my heart space, but I recognize that I still had more to go. And that definitely showed its ugly head through me being in this isolation type of period that I've been in for a while. I had an epiphany during my time in isolation. Mind you, if you've been following this thing, I finally decided to start recording when I go through these things, but out of the years and years I've been going through them. But if you've been following for this specific one, you know I've been going through this for months. It started off with like being authentic and stuff like that, walking in authenticity. And what I've learned through this transformation, besides how important it is to walk in authenticity and how scary it is and how brave you have to be to do it and how it has to be doable, like there is no choice, at least for someone like me. A part of authenticity is also being vulnerable, because as human beings we are vulnerable. There are a lot of people that will walk this earth and act like they're not, but we're not superhuman, bro. We have feelings, we have emotions. Part of the reason why we come down here to have this human experience is to literally feel these emotions. Emotions is a part of what makes us feel alive. And I think within this day and age, and even before then, and especially for my people, vulnerability was seen as a weakness. And it seems like the reason why I was in this isolation, the reason why I was just called to just sit with myself, was to recognize just how much of a superpower it is to be vulnerable, how many doors being vulnerable can open for you if you choose to let it be a superpower, and how it allows you to operate from your heart space in ways that a lot of people nowadays don't allow themselves to do. And because of the fact that a lot of people don't allow themselves to do that, it's a whole energy of abundance that's sitting down there waiting for you to finally be able, 4:44 on the clock, finally be able to be comfy. Well, not even be comfy, to dare to be vulnerable. And there's been several things where I've been scared to be vulnerable about. Like, I haven't really talked much about my spiritual gifts on here, But one thing that I've always been wary about was how I would be perceived because of my gifts. And time again, I found myself being judged by people who have no idea what it is to walk in my shoes, who have no idea the things that I've seen, bro. And will call me crazy or say that I'm lying because their mind literally cannot comprehend the shit that I've been through. And I recognize that certain people are built for certain shit. And it does not matter if you speak your truth. Some people will simply not believe it because they don't have the capacity to understand you, and that's okay. And not gonna lie, like, I've faced rejection like my entire life, you know, and you would think that I would be used to it. But I won't lie, like, that rejection is still a wound that I am healing, I will say. I've done a lot of work, a lot of inner work to heal that wound, but I will say the more that I start to be vulnerable, the more I find more things that I feel the need to hide and protect. And it's a constant internal battle to not hide those things and see them as a superpower, because I know that there are people out there like me who are waiting for permission. They're waiting for permission to be themselves. They're looking for permission to see that it is okay and that it's safe to talk about certain things. They're looking for permission to finally be themselves, bro. And the thing is, I'm blessed because I know exactly who I am. And when I say I know exactly who I am, I know exactly who I am. And it's a heavy burden to bear when you know exactly who you are, especially when there are so many things around you or that you grew up with that try to convince you otherwise of who you are. And that's a part of the divine plan to get you on your path. Like, it's all a part of the journey, you know. It wouldn't be as satisfying if you just got that shit off rip, you know. It wouldn't feel as triumphant if you didn't have to question yourself before you finally stood in your power and who you were. And my entire life, my voice has moved people in ways that I never fully understood. When I was a child, it would move people to be angry with me because I was a truth teller. You couldn't do no bullshit around me and expect me not to say nothing about it. Now, especially in a family that has secrets or doesn't want their business aired out, even though their business is very toxic to the family, and that contributes to harm to people in the family, for the sake of saving image, saving face, being comfortable in dysfunction, someone like me comes along and they automatically get condemned. That's where it all started. And then it would be, oh, well, I can do things with my voice. I can sing, I can do this. And then it came the jealousy with my voice and people telling me what I could and could not do with my voice, you know. And then here comes the platforms that I would get every now and then, like, where my voice was valued. And I recognize that sometimes I used it in the wrong way, which was a part of what I learned during my isolation period, is that I'm being called to use my voice, the power within my voice, within my magnetic ass aura, within my essence, to be more diplomatic with the way that I speak, to bring people together, to operate from a space of love. And you cannot do that without being vulnerable. You cannot do that without being authentic. And being vulnerable, even though it is a superpower, it does leave you open to possibly being hurt. Because when you are vulnerable, when you are operating from a space of love, sometimes love hurts. Sometimes the love that you give out is not received the way you want it to be received. Sometimes you, being the physical embodiment of love, won't be taken well to people who are not used to you or people like you. For example, when I knew that I had to walk in my spiritual gifts, I had no choice, right? When I finally stopped running from my spiritual gifts, because I was put in a position to where only the spiritual gifts that were passed down to me through my ancestry and that were given to my ancestry by the Most High, when it got to the point where I can no longer demonize myself and the protection and the gifts that I was given. And it was either walk in your power or fucking die. Walk in your power, or let these people put these nasty ass spells on you and you croak. You feel like you're not a threat because you act like you don't have the light that you have, and that makes you susceptible to people like them feeling like they gotta take you out and feeling like they gotta have power over you. So are you going to step in your power, or are you gonna let them feel like they have power over you and take you out? Because they were done playing games with me, bro. The Most High was done playing games with me. My ancestors were tired of me playing games, bro. I had a very specific mission. I still do. And it got to a point where I couldn't run from that shit no more. When I was younger, I was always the outcast. My life was church, school, and as I got older, dance. And I was always an outcast in all of those categories, you know, because I always did stuff in a different way. There were certain things that I did as a child that were simply innate in me to do, like seeking inner stillness, meditating. Before I even knew what the word meditating was, I would meditate all the time because I just needed that inner quiet. I needed to hear what I was hearing because I knew that it was good. But I also heard from people outside of me that it was not good. And being around people who condemn you for who you are, you know, you can discern what's evil and what's good because you've dealt with evil. You've dealt with evil. But then to be told that your God-given protection through your gifts is inherently evil, it does something to you. And even though I was never impressionable enough to ever turn my back completely on my gifts, I was like sideways walking in it, not really walking in it the way that I needed to, because I was scared of what people would think about me and how they would perceive me. And I can't control that shit. And that's been a huge theme in my life as well, is like letting go of how people perceive me. But I'll make that video for like another day. So fast forward, when I recognized just how much my voice moves people, even if they don't like what I have to say, they listen. Even if they don't like what I have to say, it plants a seed. Because deep down, they know that it resonates and that I'm right. Because I don't speak unless I have something to say. To truly say. I can't force... I can't break anyone's cognitive dissonance for them. Right? I cannot break anyone's spiritual ego for them. And especially in certain communities, I feel like spiritual ego is a very big thing. There is spiritual egos in literally every religion, every spiritual system. There is a certain subsection of whatever it is of people who have what I like to call a spiritual ego. When it's usually rooted in elitism, fear, sometimes narcissism, things that are not rooted in love and in truth. Because at the end of the day, even if you don't agree with what I have to say, even if you feel like you don't agree with what I have to say, and I had to learn this in isolation through me learning that I am being called to walk in love at this point in my life and going forward throughout my entire life. Almost like radical love. I'm being called to walk in radical love for people. No matter what their position is on me or anything like that. Because of the fact that even if they don't like me, even if they don't like what I do, even if what they've been taught tells them that I am inherently evil and I know I'm not. Energy does not lie. You can walk in a room and feel energy. You can walk in a room and know if there was an argument that was just had, even if you don't feel anything, you can feel tension. Tension is a form of energy. You can feel that shit. It's palpable. You can feel it, right? And that within itself is a spiritual gift, but that's also a story for another day. Energy does not lie. So even if I got on here and I said everything that I'm saying, but I'm rooted in darkness, you would be able to feel that. It does not matter what comes out of my mouth. It matters the energy that I exude. And I know that I exude love. I know that I exude authenticity. And I know that I exude truth, even if people don't like the truth. Even if people don't like my truth. And that's something that can never be taken away from me. And knowing that and allowing that to kind of be my anchor, because I was questioning, and I'm like, how do I walk in who I am without being condemned by people who are so small-minded in the way that they think that someone like me has to inherently be evil? And what I was told is, that's why I have to be vulnerable. That is why I have to practice radical love in the way that I walk this earth. And to practice radical love means that you might get hurt, and that's scary. People don't like walking in radical love because they don't want to be hurt. It's a vulnerability, and they see that vulnerability as a weakness. I can't do that no more. And I won't lie, like, I don't like the fact that I can't do that no more. It's been a shield that I've had for such a long time, especially growing up, not really being embraced by the groups that I was naturally put in through circumstance and by proximity, like in my hometown and shit like that. But it has made me such a magnet for people who resonate with me on such a deep soul level, who have been looking for someone like me to just validate who they are, or to validate the things that they've gone through, you know. And I'm really young. I'm only 24. I know who I am. I've been through some shit that a lot of motherfuckers way older than me would not be able to survive through. I have knowledge that people way older than me do not have, do not care to have. And the only way I was able to obtain that was through constant isolation, constant self-evaluation, constant meditation, constantly finding inner peace, constantly doing my inner child healing work, constantly doing the shadow work throughout my entire life. And now I'm in this era where I'm being called to share a little bit of it. And that's a really vulnerable thing, because even now, me posting this, I'm like, okay, how are people going to perceive me? But one thing about the truth, even if people don't like it, it sticks around. It activates the people. It lights a spark in them that it's supposed to. And that's what I gotta stay focused on. And I just hope, and I know I probably shouldn't say this, only because I know that, like, I'm being called to not really focus on it, but I'm hoping that you feeling my energy and discerning it for yourself, past ego, past limiting beliefs, past what you've been taught, really looking at it from a place of, I'm looking at what I directly see. I'm feeling what I see, and I'm not trying to negate what I feel, because I know that what I feel is real in regards to who I am, the people who are meant to resonate with me. I just hope you guys, even though I haven't been like posting a lot of what I've been through, and I will post more. I have so many videos that I never posted that I'm gonna post. So if it seems like some stuff is out of order, it's because it is. I have shit from like years ago, videos of just me talking about the things that I've been through that I'm gonna post. But I just hope that you see my journey and it gives you something to believe in. I hope it gives you something to believe in, especially if you feel like there is more to what you've been taught. There's more to than what you've been exposed to, and that it's not inherently evil just because you've never heard of it. I remember when I went to Costa Rica, and this is probably going to be my longest video ever. I remember going to Costa Rica for a spiritual retreat. And I just remember being able to operate from my heart space so easy. Being surrounded by nature, being surrounded by people who are so connected to nature and connected to the animals and everything around them, and they coexist. There's no hierarchy of one above the other because they recognize that there is God within everything. Therefore, everything deserves equal respect. It was a beautiful experience because I could be myself. Like, I had people come up to me like, oh my God, like, I love your energy. Like, could you give me advice on this? Or, could you help me with that, you know? And I was happy to. I was nervous because I didn't know how it would be perceived, or if they were just trying to see if it was a gimmick, or if they were trying to like pull my card out, which they couldn't, but because there's no card to pull. But I just felt so valued. You know, I feel like in the Americas, we kind of place humans up here and everything else below that. And then you have humans over here who also place themselves in different categories, higher and below others. And it's like over there, it was totally different. They inherently shared my beliefs. They inherently knew that I was sent by the Most High. They knew. They reverenced who I was. And it felt really good because throughout my entire life, I never felt that way. Like, even my family members, a lot of them have the same gifts I do, but because they never developed their gifts in the way that I did, because they were taught that it was inherently bad. Walking around with the same gifts I do and got the nerve to call me evil. Or to tell me I shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z. I just think it's incredibly wild to be made a certain way, to be sent down to earth, and then to be told by the same people walking around who was made the same way, given the same gifts, the same spiritual protection through those gifts, and to be told, you're evil for that. And even though they'll know exactly where it started, it's almost like they're under a spell, and the spell is just too hard to break. And the spell just couldn't get me, because I would never demonize myself. I would never demonize those who came before me. And I don't have to say it. I don't have to say it at all, because it'll show. When I meditated and I spoke to the Most High, they said, you will know. They will know you by the fruits that you bear. That's what I heard. And they weren't talking about the materialistic shit either. They will know you by the fruits that you bear. The fruits of love, the fruits of wisdom, the fruits of vulnerability, the fruits of accountability, the fruits of honesty. They will know you by the fruits that you bear, even if you are foreign to them, even if they don't quite understand, even if they've been taught something totally different. about people like you. They will know you by the fruits that they bear. And however they choose to perceive you after that, it will be completely on them. And the way that they choose to treat you after that, it'll show more about their character than yours. And it was within that I found a certain kind of peace with being vulnerable with who I am. And yeah, I'm still working on it. Like, yeah, it's still new. I haven't worked all the way through it, but I have cracked a pretty huge code on what exactly this isolation period was for, why there was such a big emphasis on authenticity and being authentic, and how scary that is. I don't think people understand just how scary it is to be authentic around people who have hive minds. But it's something that I've been preparing for my entire life, because like I said, I've been treated the same way my entire life. I've been treated like the outcast my entire life. I've been treated like the outcast while continuously being exactly who I am my entire life. And yeah, I did, for a certain point in time, ride the fence. I was around a whole bunch of people who understood my power, understood my presence, and did not properly value it. And they wanted it for themselves. And when they figured out they couldn't have it for themselves, they tried to take me out mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. And because of that, it caused me to walk sideways in my gifts. That's a type of spiritual warfare. But that was a long time ago. And I know exactly who I am and what I'm meant to do on this earth. And I am